The transport shuttle touched down on Kepler 442c with a mechanical wheeze that echoed across the crimson grasslands. Professor Marcus Reed watched through the viewport as his 13 xenobiology students pressed their faces against the reinforced glass, their excitement palpable despite the safety briefings that had consumed the past 3 days. "Remember," Reed announced over the comm system, "Kepler 442c has a gravity coefficient of 1.3 Earth standard. The atmospheric pressure is within human tolerance, but the oxygen content is 12% higher. You'll feel euphoric initially, don't mistake that for safety." The planet sprawled before them like a fever dream. Towering fungi stretched toward the dual suns, their bioluminescent caps pulsing in rhythms that suggested complex chemical communication. The jungle floor writhed with what appeared to be plant life, though Reed's instruments detected cellular structures that defied traditional botanical classification. "The indigenous flora has evolved aggressive defense mechanisms," he continued, watching as several students activated their recording equipment. "Projectile spores, neurotoxic sap, and predatory root systems have been documented. Stay within the designated perimeter." Marcus Thompson, no relation to the professor, despite the shared surname, stood at the rear of the group, methodically checking his equipment. While his classmates chattered about academic papers and research opportunities, Thompson studied the jungle with the practiced eye of someone who had spent summers tracking wolverines through the Canadian wilderness. The expedition began at 0800 local time. Reed led the group along a path that their orbital surveys had identified as relatively stable. The students spread out in a loose formation, their bioscanners beeping constantly as they catalogued new species. By 1100 hours, they had encountered their first casualty. Jennifer Kowalski had wandered 30 meters from the path to examine what appeared to be a flowering shrub. The plant's petals unfurled as she approached, revealing rows of thorn-like projections that launched themselves with the velocity of crossbow bolts. Her environmental suit's puncture warning screamed as the thorns pierced the Kevlar composite material. The neurotoxin worked faster than their emergency protocols. Kowalski collapsed within seconds, her vital signs flattering to zero before the medical nanobots could counteract the foreign compounds flooding her system. "Nobody else leaves the path," Reed ordered, but panic had already taken hold. Over the next 6 hours, the jungle claimed 11 more students. David Kim fell through what appeared to be solid ground into a pit lined with digestive enzymes. The Martinez twins were consumed by a carnivorous vine that moved with serpentine intelligence. Sarah Johnson's oxygen recycler was compromised by spores that converted her air supply into a hallucinogenic compound, causing her to walk directly into a grove of trees whose bark secreted concentrated sulfuric acid. By nightfall, only Thompson remained. Reed's final transmission had been desperate. "Marcus, if you can hear this, the shuttle's automated systems will return to orbital station in 72 hours with or without survivors. The jungle, it's not just hostile. It's learning. It's adapting to our countermeasures in real time." Thompson had listened to his professor's voice fade into static while crouched inside a hollow log, watching bioluminescent predators circle his position. The jungle pulsed around him like a living organism, and he began to understand what Reed had meant about learning. Instead of fighting the ecosystem, Thompson observed it. He watched the patterns of light that passed between the fungal networks. He noticed how certain plants recoiled from others, creating safe corridors for small creatures. Most importantly, he identified the symbiotic relationships that allowed some organisms to thrive in this lethal environment. On the second day, he began to mimic these relationships. Thompson collected samples of the orange-fleshed fruit that the indigenous creatures consumed safely. He analyzed its chemical composition using his field kit and discovered it contained compounds that rendered the bearer temporarily invisible to the jungle's aggressive species. After testing microscopic amounts on himself, he began consuming the fruit regularly. The creature found him on the third day. It resembled a saber-toothed tiger, but its cellular structure contained chlorophyll analogues that allowed it to photosynthesize. The beast was dying, its left flank torn open by something with claws the size of combat knives. Thompson approached slowly, offering the medicinal sap he had observed other creatures using. The tiger, for lack of a better term, allowed him to treat its wounds. In return, it became his guardian, its presence deterring the jungle's other inhabitants. When the shuttle returned, Thompson emerged from the jungle carrying a sample case filled with fruit and leading his unlikely companion. The orbital station's scientists stared in disbelief as he calmly requested quarantine procedures for both himself and the tiger. "How did you survive?" they asked. Thompson looked back at the jungle, where bioluminescent signals pulsed in what might have been farewell. "I didn't try to conquer it," he replied. "I learned to speak its language." The tiger purred beside him, its photosynthetic fur shimmering in the shuttle's artificial light.